Welcome back to the Angry Man podcast with Jason and Greg. Today, I got T-Word in the building. What's going on, man?
I'm in the business too. You know what I'm saying? Hey, what's happening, bro? Thanks for having me back.
Oh man, no problem at all. So first of all, always got to give love to the people who support the channel, which is our sponsors, Rock Dog Interactive and Black Father Figures. We'll talk a little bit more about that during the show.
Yeah.
But Black Father Figures, man, they have an AM Sports Media page where you can go and support Black Father Figures, and they got merch. So we'll talk a little bit again about that a little bit later. But guys, what's going on, man? We got some folks in the building. Ralph Shelton, what's going on? GA, Peach, Denise, what's up? Chi-Town Finest, what's going on, man? We got a lot to talk about in the sport of boxing, T. Are you ready to dive into this?
Yes, sir. I'm ready to get it popping. Let's do it.
All right, man. Let's start off with Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia, Oscar De La Hoya. I did a video about this earlier today. And, Oscar tweeted that essentially they haven't received the contract yet. And if they don't receive a contract by Monday, hey, they're going to move on. Now, I question why Oscar De La Hoya would, number one, go to social media to do that. I don't think there's any reason for Oscar to do that. Like, why are you going to social media? If you know that there's if there's a specific time in which the PBC and Tank needed to provide a contract to Ryan Garcia and Golden Boy Promotion, and they're well past that time, I completely understand that and why you would be pushing or thinking about moving on. But I don't understand why you would go to social media in order to deliver that message when you can just reach out to them directly. And then the other part of this, T, and I'm going to pass it to you very quickly to get your thoughts, is you are the B side. Since when does the B side dictate to the A side?
They don't. So
you dictate. So go ahead, man. It's on you.
Man, Oscar on that BS. Let's keep it a buck, right? He's on that BS, and I'm thinking that maybe they're trying to find some leverage in the terms, or he's trying to create some additional buzz from his side. I mean, this just might be selling the act, right? There's not going to be any breakdown in negotiations. Ryan Garcia is already on video saying that he's seen the contract. So from there, anything Oscar's saying, so you mean to tell me that Ryan is negotiating without you? Is that what you're telling us? That explains why all your fighters keep leaving your ass. You know what I'm saying? Because obviously they're getting stuff done that you can't. So that being said, it just makes me wonder if this is just promotional. I mean, Tank just had a fight. You got to roll off the steam of that fight and actually talk about getting the next fight going and why your fighter belongs in there, because this isn't for belts. This is just for namesake. This is just to say, I beat your dude's butt. You know what I'm saying? So in my opinion, I think this is just promotion, and it's just to temperature check. It's kind of like a gauge. He stuck his finger in the Twitter water just to see, is it lukewarm? Is it hot? And based on the responses I've seen, it's kind of lukewarm, honestly. I mean, people want to see the fight. They're just lukewarm on dealing with Oscar regarding the fight.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And I know there's been a lot of speculation in the comment section that, Tank doesn't want to fight. Not Tank. Ryan Garcia doesn't want to fight, and that this fight was never going to end up taking place. I don't think so. I think when you look at Ryan Garcia, man, he looks steadfast in his desire in order to get Tank into the ring. So, and have you noticed Ryan has not tweeted anything in regards to the fight? And, I just feel like to the point that you're making, this could be just, I don't know, trying to figure out a way to do some kind of leverage, additional promotion. I have no idea. I do believe that the fight is going to continue to, or I believe that they're going to be able to make the fight. But, and we haven't seen Tank say anything either, have we? I haven't seen Tank come out with any kind of tweet in regards to the tweet that he made. So I think this is just, I think De La Hoya is just putting up smoke, man. That's my thought.
He is. So Tank is a little preoccupied with Eddie Hearn, and I don't know if you want to segue into that after we close off this Ryan thing, but Tank is a little preoccupied going back and forth with Eddie, and he posted the tweets from Eddie about, not tweets, the DMs. Yeah, some DMs. Yeah. So with him being preoccupied with that, I don't know that talking to Oscar De La Hoya is something that he's interested in right now. He's dealing with one fish at a time. He's frying one at a time. But I think, and he's been posting and not deleting. So if he got something to say, we're going to hear about it probably by the end of this week. I think he's going to try to show some introspection and think about his response before he says anything, because it just sounds like an idle threat to me. So he's not addressing it. If there's actually been some type of draft, not necessarily a contract, but some sort of draft or pre-contract laid out, I'm sure Tank has seen it. And PBC obviously, and then I'm sure that Ryan has seen it, and Oscar is just blowing smoke, just to keep his name in the media because he ain't got nothing else going on. I mean, what else does he have?
Yeah, we just saw Ryan Garcia on the MMA hour. He literally just said that from everything he knows, this fight's a go. So then a day or so later, Oscar De La Hoya is now saying that they don't receive a contract. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense just based off of the dialogue that we've seen over the last couple of days from Ryan Garcia. And then just again, the desire seems like coming from Ryan Garcia's camp that he believes that he can win this fight and he really wants to make this fight. When you think about it, honestly, it's probably the biggest fight that both of them can make, both in terms of just pure numbers, and then in terms of just, attraction to the sport, right? This is the biggest fight that both of them can make. So I don't know why either one of them would do something other than make this fight. So I hear what a lot of people are saying, specifically like Deuce Daly saying that, hey, it was a verbal agreement, no contract. But I just personally believe that at the end of the day, this fight will eventually get made. Those are my thoughts. I'm going to pause for a little bit to see if there's anything that's being said in the chat that we need to address, or if anybody thinks differently in the chat because they have additional information. But so far, I just don't see there being anything there for me to believe that this fight is not going to occur, period.
Let me throw you a curveball. And this will probably segue into another point I know we're going to address. So we have another major fight announcement that we had April.
Oh, I know where you're going.
So the night of Tank's fight, in the press conference, him and Calvin was like, "Oh, they said April 15th. Then I guess it's April 15th." I don't think they had a solid date, or they just weren't ready to announce it. But then you've got Errol Spence Jr. and Keith Thurman with probably the same date, because what dates can you get in April? And you can't really do 2 pay-per-views. So this might be Oscar finding a way to softly and gently let people know we're probably pushing this back to May because we need to get that other fight in, because Spence is under time restrictions, because even though he has 60 days after his fight to book something with Bud or fight the IBF or WBA challenger, he actually will be coming up at the end of the 120 days from the boot side of things with the IBF. So they might need to get something booked and get some dates going, because he got to get some fights scheduled in quick succession. So I know we're going to get to that in a minute, but maybe Oscar is just laying the groundwork to push a delay back that, well, the contract came late, now we got to go back to the drawing board, and then they push it back a month. 2 weeks from now, we get a new fight date, and it's in May. What do you think about that?
I just don't understand why you would go about it in this way, T. I get what you're saying, but I just don't understand why you would go about it in this way. You could easily just say, hey, guys, we understand that Errol Spence is going to have to fight in April because of the time restrictions that he currently have relative to the IBF and the WBA. And so because of that, we're going to either need to push this fight forward or backwards. We know that Tank just fought in January, so forward is probably not going to be an option. So we need to go ahead and push it backwards. Hey, Al, what can we do? What makes sense? And then do it in that way. But the way that he's presenting it as though these guys are not doing what they need to do on their end, which in my mind, it leads more to promotion, because I just cannot envision Tank Davis or Ryan Garcia bypassing the second biggest fight in the sport, and it's probably going to generate millions of dollars for both of these guys, and not only these guys, but their promotional entities as well, and all their managers and teams. It just doesn't make sense to me in my mind. So I just think he's promoting right now. That's it. Those are my thoughts. Let's see what we got in the chat real quick, T, before we make a transition. Salute at 76. Okay. Deuce Daly Spence is under no restrictions. His only fight at 147 is Bud. Every sanctioned body doesn't want to get in his way because Deuce Daly, I totally agree with that. But at the end of the day, that's all predicated on him fighting Bud. So we're not necessarily saying that he has a time restriction on him in terms of those sanctioning bodies specifically. It's more so about he needs to go ahead and make that fight with Bud, because if that fight is not made with Bud within those 60 days, he will be enforced in terms of the IBF and the WBA, because they're going to give him the additional time that he needs in order to make that fight. No one is disputing that at all. Let's see what else we got. I think so much changed since Ryan, but his foot in his mouth and that Tyson podcast. It was never in the car for Ryan. Completely speculating though. No, totally understand that, man. I can understand why everybody is skeptical about this fight just because Ryan Garcia, he seems sketchy. But I believe in this particular case, I think he's going to fight. I really do. I think this fight is going to get made. I really do.
Well, he needs it. He definitely he absolutely needs this fight in order to get into that next level because there's nobody at 140 that's going to give him the notoriety that he'll get even in the loss to Tank because he ain't finna get in a Regis program. Like who was just gonna sign up for that type of beating? So who else from a marquee standpoint can you fight at 140 besides waiting for Devin to get up there sometime middle of next year after he fights Loma and Tank?
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can see. So you got to fight Tank right now if you want to keep your name in the pot because you clearly don't care about belts because you're not even fighting to get belts. When was he in the title eliminator? I don't remember Ryan Garcia contending for a belt on paper. No?
No, I don't.
Chat? Did I miss something? All right, if IBF and WBA want to get those sanction fees at 154, why would they screw that up? Well, they're gonna get sanction fees at 154 anytime Jamel fight. As soon as he get in the ring and fight Tim Tszyu, they're gonna get all four of them is gonna get 3% each. So as far as Errol, you get more sanctioning fees in that title fight. So they need him at 147 to defend their belts. The WBC is just willing to take whatever money they could get because they really had no business in the order anyway. I keep jumping off the topic, man. I'm gonna stay where I'm at. You got it.
No. I just want to address that he's put in the chat. Thoughts on Bill Haney stating that they want to fight Shakur. They don't want to fight Shakur until they are at 147. I had not heard that, Deuce. So I'm not. I don't want to. It's hard for me to make a comment without hearing it in its full context, but I feel like Shakur Stevenson is going to be trailing Devin Haney no matter what, because after he fights Lomachenko, he's going to go up to 140, and I foresee Shakur Stevenson being at 135 pounds for at least 3 to 5 fights, and so at that point he may move to 140. So the soonest in my mind they'll meet is at 140 is my thought, but 147 seems like a long way away. Those are my thoughts. Feels like it shouldn't take that long in order for those two to get in the ring. It should be somewhere around 140 would be my thought. What are your thoughts on that, T?
I've been also speculating 140 is the matchup for Devin and Shakur, at least the first time. I feel like those two are definitely going to fight twice. I think each of them will only fight Tank once, but they're going to fight each other twice just because of the stylistic matchup. I think it'd be good for TV. That being said, I think they might fight once at 140. And then they'll follow up and meet again at 147 a couple years later. And if it's a really good fight, or if somebody's not ahead, if it's 1-1, then maybe they even fight again at 147. But I don't think that it's going to marinate properly if they wait until they're both at 147 7 years from now. That's just not going to make sense because neither one of them is at 147 yet.
Yeah, marinate. I'm sorry, but I like Shakur. I like Shakur. I like Devin, but this is a fight that needs absolutely no marination whatsoever, or no marinating whatsoever, because neither one of these guys are exactly box office smashes. So when the opportunity presents itself, they're probably going to maximize their dollars regardless. Now we'll learn more about Devin Haney because I believe this fight with Lomachenko is supposed to be a pay-per-view fight. So we'll learn a little bit more about Devin Haney's drawing power after this fight. But based off of what we know today, neither one of these guys are draws. So there's definitely no reason for either one of these guys to talk about the fight needs to marinate. That shouldn't even be in anybody's vocabulary.
So Shakur hasn't said that. Bill Haney has alluded to that. And that's kind of what they're saying. Like, he made a statement sometime last year where he was saying, like, when Shakur lost his belts on the scale, like, he knows when he moved up, we was moving up. I'm not quoting him properly, but in other words, as soon as you get to 35, we bailing anyway. You knew that. That's kind of what he said, like there had been some conversation. So basically they're playing a little chase game, cat and mouse, for them to catch him at the highest weight. Because while I think Devin will fill out at 147 because of the way his frame is, I don't know that Shakur is going to fill out at 147 and be as elite as he is, because I think he'll lose some athleticism because he'll be a bit bloated. I don't think the best parts of his game will translate. So at 140 is the best fight for these two men.
Yeah, I can see that totally.
That's just me.
I want to transition to another video that I did, but first, we got 54 people in the building, 23 likes. We get the opportunity. Please hit the like button. And if you don't like the content, by all means, hit the dislike button, but make sure that you engage with the content. So Oscar De La Hoya, man, every time I turn around, man, this dude has the PBC and Al Haymon's name in his mouth. And he keeps talking about, he just recently posted a tweet basically saying that, you know, the fighters that are associated with the PBC, they need to move on from the PBC if they want to maintain their legacy or establish a legacy, because apparently they can't do it with the PBC. Now, what I want to understand, T, is what fighters have established legacies with Golden Boy Promotion outside of Canelo Alvarez, who is always going to be a star, right? And even the legacy that he's currently established is really one that's, let's say, is suspect, right? Just because of the people that he's fought. And then Ryan Garcia has absolutely no legacy. But now both of these guys are stars, right? Who else has Golden Boy Promotion built as a star? And more importantly, who else has Golden Boy Promotions built as a star that's African American? I'm waiting for your response, T. Anybody?
Oh, that's a real question.
Nobody.
I can't think of nobody, man. That's not what they do.
Exactly.
That's not what they do. Oscar doesn't realize he's turning off a portion of his audience. Facts. It's not what they do. Oscar's Mexican, right? Yes. Oscar's Mexican. I don't want to give him the wrong ethnicity. Okay.
An American.
There's a certain demographic that he naturally appealed to in his heyday, meaning he understands that market intricately, just like Floyd Mayweather specifically understands how to market a black fighter, because he understood, just like his career towards the back end, he put Tank against certain people that would expand the demographic. Unfortunately, Oscar hasn't figured that out because he has some concerns, I believe, that if he takes a Hispanic fighter and puts him against a black fighter who's more skilled, that fighter's going to lose. He played with fire. You have Rocha versus Ellis, and it backfired because I don't think he expected Ellis to win that fight. So now you've got him in a position where he's like, well, if I can't beat those fighters, if I have them on my team, now I can put these African-American fighters against their Hispanic fighters, and now I get to be on the plus side of the equation instead of on the other side. Now, I don't want to be overly heavy into the race part of it, even though we know that's part of how things are marketed in boxing. Real promoters are considering these dynamics. Am I wrong? And I think that he's considering that, so he's trying to drop salt to try to get those guys to start to look at Al Haymon and PBC differently and TGB differently, and then they'll move on, and then he could go out there and pick up some scraps. Because remember, there's a mass exodus, and those fighters ended up with PBC.
No, well, let's be clear. Those fighters were essentially always with PBC, right? PBC didn't exist at that time, but they were always with Al Haymon and never actually signed to Golden Boy. And so I think Oscar I think all of that negativity that we get from Oscar De La Hoya is rooted in the fact that he thought Golden Boy was going to be the next superpower. I don't think he was quite aware of what was actually going on within his business. He was off doing whatever he was doing. That's his personal life. But Richard Schaefer was running that business. And then when he came back, he found out that none of these fighters are actually signed to Golden Boy Promotions. And then once Richard Schaefer left, everybody that was associated with Golden Boy Promotion that was a fighter was done with them, and they moved the hell on. And Oscar is still bitter about that. And I know that they had some kind of lawsuit going on with PBC. And I know that there were some emails that were unearthed as a part of that discovery process. And he was saying some things that were very negative towards a certain specific race of people. And I'm not going to go into the details of that, but clearly there's some issue. And I don't think it was Oscar. Maybe it was some other people that was within Golden Boy Promotions. But at the end of the day, Oscar is still upset about that. A lot of people are upset about the genius, and I'm going to say it again, the genius of Al Haymon. They don't like the fact that Al Haymon is around here just leveraging these different rules and negotiating and finding loopholes for his fighters to do X, Y, Z. He's not supposed to be able to do that. Only certain promoters within the sport are supposed to be able to do that. And that is the underlying issue with Oscar De La Hoya. That's the issue that he has with the PBC. Those are my thoughts. Maybe I'm an ass. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But you can go ahead and tell me if I'm an ass. I don't mind carrying that because Jason calls me that virtually every day.
Nah, you're on point like a pen tip, man. Let me tell you. What I think part of it is going along with what you're saying is that some of these dudes out there just mad because they ain't do it first. They really mad that they didn't do it first. Because a lot of times your haters ain't mad that it worked. They're mad that you came with it first. And this is something that if you duplicate it, you bring up a red flag and you mess up the game anyway. They can't duplicate it without the powers that be actually going like, wait a minute, Al ain't doing something right. Because if I'm being 100% candid here, the way he has it set up is so player, but it's like one little piece out of place could kind of topple the whole thing. And I'm not about to get into bashing Al Haymon, but I will say that the way that it's structured, there's enough pieces to be questioned, but it's covered so well that it's been floating along for several years. What, 2015? So we're 8 years in and it's still floating. But I'll say that to say that I think that his competitors are just upset that he beat them to the hustle. That's all it is.
Man, DAZN. I love the people who are, I just saw that. This is why I love the people who are subscribed to this channel, because they help me be on point, T. That was a topic that I had forgotten about. We're definitely going to cover that. Is there anything else we want to talk about relative to Oscar De La Hoya and his pure hate for the PBC? Because that's really all it is. If not, salute Anthony Jones. If not, we'll go ahead and make that transition. We'll talk a little bit about DAZN. Now,
let's do it.
We did a video about DAZN losing $6 billion. $6 billion over 6 years. And let me make sure I'm very clear, because there's some people that clearly cannot read that were in the comment section. And were coming at me. I guess they're BLK Prime fans or Terence Crawford fans or just people that don't like this channel. I don't know. But they were questioning, oh, you didn't say it, it's 6 billion over 6 years. Like the freaking thumbnail says 6 billion over 6 years. I understand that. I also know that all of their income does not come from boxing. I totally know that as well. I know that within 2021, a large expenditure that they had was the acquisition of some type of soccer sports team. And that's the reason for their losses there, which equated to, I don't remember what the number was, but in total, they lost $2.3 billion. But prior to 2021, what about the other $4 billion? Those were losses. And I'm talking about, honestly, if you think about boxing and you think about the structure that they have, and you think about the contract that they have with Canelo Alvarez, clearly that is also a loser for them. And it is probably a contributing factor. Now, we don't have their financials because they're not a publicly traded company, so we can't see what each one of their divisions are doing. But it's clear to me that boxing is not something that's going very well for DAZN. And more than likely with BLK Prime and the similar structure, it will not go well for them either. Period. So that's the point that we were making, at least, I can't remember if Jason was part of that video as well. That's the point that Jason and I were making. They have a similar model and structure with less resources. So why is it that we believe that BLK Prime will be successful where DAZN has failed? T, I'm gonna pass it to you. What are your thoughts on that?
So starting with DAZN, I did my research. I've had this battle in the comments first. So I didn't end up doing a video because I was exhausted on the research. But I can tell you for sure that the majority of their income is from the soccer leagues that they acquired, because those contracts are lucrative. They just haven't got the biggest names, but you have to establish that you can provide the content, and then those big names will come when their broadcast contracts end, right? So they're doing the right thing in that regard. So they can almost write off their losses in boxing, but it also says that their model for boxing isn't working. Not to mention the fact that no more pay-per-view has become, well, we're going to sell you influencer boxing on pay-per-view, but instead of just one dude carrying it named Jake Paul, we're going to sell you a league of influencer boxers, because that's what is that? It's not MX. What's it called? I can't think of the name right now, but it had KSI and some other dudes in there. That's where Hardy and the Rockman kid fought. So you're taking what you're doing and you're just throwing stuff at the wall at this point and hoping it sticks. because they haven't found a better formula in boxing. And again, they can't duplicate the Al model, so they've got to create their own. So they're really just surviving off those soccer and other. Because if you go on their platform, their other content is really related to things that aren't really American based, and that's why their American branch didn't work, because they don't have a product that works in the States. So from my perspective, I just don't see a long-term prognosis in combat sports for DAZN unless their MMA style stuff takes off. Now, for BLK, I don't take them as the same as DAZN, because I think DAZN lasts because they have another thriving version of their platform that works. They got the soccer. BLK don't have that. They've got movies that people really don't watch like that. They got 5,000 subscribers. I know DAZN has more subscribers globally than that. So what that means to me is you have a better way of making more money, which also means you're probably losing more too. But how long can BLK stay in business with a model that really doesn't support itself at all? You don't have another branch that's going to bump up your books and make it look like you're at least breaking even. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I want to no great points there. Great points. I want to tackle what Deuce Daly just said in the comment section, because he's absolutely right there. And we also did a video on my man Max Kellerman, I guess the Eminem of the sports commentary world. So Max Kellerman did his, what is it, Max Home Boxing Show, and he basically said that he believes that Al Haymon is ducking the fight, and he's saying that Al Haymon is using transparent tactics. I don't know what the fuck that means.
I don't know.
Apparently, he's using transparent tactics in order to not make this fight. But he did say that Errol Spence did want this fight. Now, to his credit, Andre Ward, since he's been on ESPN, sometimes he's a little bit iffy, but to his credit, he did refute that and basically said, hey, listen, we don't know. Now, if the fight doesn't get made next time, then maybe we can start looking at who may be to blame. But at the end of the day, right now, he believes that both of these fighters want to fight. Max and anybody that was at HBO and Oscar De La Hoya, I'm going to tell you again, guys, again and again and again, there's an issue with it being Al Haymon. Al Haymon is the issue. I don't think it's necessarily the actions of Al Haymon. I think it's because it is Al Haymon. I'm going to leave it at that. Salute, Fat Cat. What's going on, bro? I'm going to leave it at that right there, man. So we got 78 folks in the building. We got 41 likes. If you get the opportunity, please hit the like button. It helps other people find the content. And also it allows, us to, continue to put this good content out there. So, again, man, Al Haymon, I think he's probably one of the most hated men in boxing, and there's a reason for that. So what else do we want to talk about, man? Have we gotten the opportunity, bro, to talk about Errol Spence fighting Keith Thurman at 154 pounds?
Okay.
That was a video that I dropped recently.
I dropped one today.
I called it Errol Spence is playing chess and not checkers with this move to 154 pounds. I hope you guys have gotten the opportunity to see that video, but there's a number of reasons why I say he's playing chess. Number one, he's preventing Keith Thurman from getting the same opportunity that Keith Thurman denied. That's number one. Number two, he's found a way to not only hold on to his titles at 147 pounds, but also make a boatload of money in the process.
Facts.
That's very intelligent. And then number three, he gets 60 days after this fight. He has to be successful, but after this fight, he has 60 days to make a fight with Terence Crawford. Number one, I don't believe Errol Spence wants to be at 147 pounds anymore, period. He's looking to move to 154 pounds. This was the first step. What better way to move to 154 pounds by fighting at a catch weight and fighting an opponent that's actually coming up as well? You get your feet wet, and then you get the opportunity to circle back, spin the block, whatever you want to call it, and look at Terence Crawford and say, hey, do you want to make this fight? And if Terence Crawford wants to make the fight, you can. If he doesn't, you move on, because at the end of the day, Errol Spence, with the current resume he has, he's still going to have an option to go up to 154 pounds and capture a title there, and that's going to add to his legacy. He will still get the opportunity to make it to the Hall of Fame and make a boatload of money even without Terence Crawford. So that is what I believe. T, I'm going to give you the opportunity to speak on that, and then we'll talk about what Mauricio Suleiman said I believe that was yesterday. But go ahead, man.
Yeah, it was on Saturday afternoon. Okay, so my opinion on what it is, I'm gonna kind of summarize what I put in my video, right? Y'all go watch that when this is over, because I go into a little bit more detail than I'm gonna do here. Okay, so my opinion is that Errol Spence is satisfying several things at one time. Obviously, the WBC and PBC and Showtime have a good relationship because you always see that green belt on Showtime, right? They've all gotten together and colluded and said, "Hey, you got this mandatory out there. We've been wanting this dude in the ring with Keith for a minute. You mandated it. We're going to get it, but here's what we want to do. We don't want to force this guy to have to come down to this weight more times than necessary because we do want him to get into this much bigger fight. We want to give Keith a nice little cash out. I call it the Great Keith Cash Out. That's what I'm calling it. The Great Keith Cash Out. KEEF. Anyway, so you're going to take this opportunity to give him a really big payday and an opportunity to truly line his pockets better than any other fight he can make. Even if he fought Terence Crawford for undisputed, he would still make less money than fighting Errol Spence for no belts. Let's think about that. This is a big time money draw for these two particular fighters because there's some history that's been stewing and brewing for long enough to where it looks like a revenge thing. It's like, oh, I can't run from you anymore because you dodged me. All right, I'm just going to kick your butt. Okay. So that's the benefit because this is what everybody's been asking. Why would Keith agree to this? Keith Thurman don't really want them damn belts, y'all. Keith Thurman wants the money that comes with the belts. And he knows if I get the belts at 147, I got to defend against these young lions that I really don't want to fight. I don't want to fight Boots. I don't want to fight Virgil. And I damn sure don't want to fight Stanley Onis because he's going to stand there and beat on me for 12 rounds. I don't want that. But I can make way more money, probably double any other fight if I fight Errol Spence and then I go on about my way. Now, here's something else I threw out in the video, and I'm going to toss it back to you. What if Keith doesn't win? The WBC is standing and waiting for the result. So what that means to me is Keith can probably stay the number one contender in the WBC, even if he loses, because they'll just say, oh, that wasn't at 147 anyway. He could keep his spot. And whoever wins undisputed, then he can be in line to win a vacant belt whenever that dude drops him. That's what I think is going to happen right here.
So that's the issue that I had with Mauricio Suleiman in the comments that he made to the Boxing Voice, right? He was very vague in what he was saying. We'll see what ends up happening after the fight. What the fuck does that mean? What does that mean? Like, the only way that I can interpret that, T, is that we'll see if Errol Spence decides to come back down to 147 pounds. If he comes back to 147, then guess what? This fight will be held up as a fight that basically satisfied the mandatory, and we'll allow him to unify the titles. If not, then we'll strip him of the titles, which you really not stripping him of the title because he's leaving the division anyway. So he could have added a lot of clarity in terms of what would end up happening, but he added really not a whole lot of clarity and left a whole lot of room for us to interpret what it was that he was saying. So with Keith, personally, I think if he loses, Keith may have an argument for being able to stay as the mandatory or whatever position he currently is in. But honestly, I do not believe he will stay as the mandatory, and I believe he will lose ground if he loses this fight. But Keith ain't worried about that shit, bro. Keith just in it for that bag. Once Keith gets his money, Keith out.
And that's why the WBC agreed to it, because they get to get a young lion who could potentially take over the division in the WBC. I have to look at the rankings again because that's one sanctioning body I just hadn't been looking at 47 because WBO had some big names in line. WBA had some big names in line, and the IBF had a couple big names in line. I can't even tell you who's the top 5 in the WBC off the top of my head, but I'm going to assume that prior to January 7th, Boots, Rocha, Thurman, Virgil, because those guys didn't have belts at the time, were in the top 5 in the WBC. Keith don't want to fight none of them dudes. So to me, this is about the money. But as far as what you were saying, I do want to address what you were saying, why Suleiman was so ambiguous in his statements, because he's leaving the option to do whatever he wants with his belt. He's saying, like, let's see what happens. We could decide what we want to do with our ranking and with our belt. Because let's say Keith wins. Let's play this out just real quick. Keith wins, right? He's only going to win the WBC belt because that fight's not sanctioned by the WBA or IBF. So now you have 3 title holders at 47. And now Keith is either going to have to fight Bud or rematch Errol, and that's going to push Undisputed even further out. But guess what? Errol can't fight right away. He got satisfied a WBA mandatory. So now he's out the mix. So now you got Keith versus Bud. So now Bud gets 2 belts. And now you get a whole different dynamic in negotiation for Undisputed because Bud's going to be Keith. I just don't see him getting away. I think Errol's going to win too, but in the case for some reason he doesn't because he's too injured or he's too slow or something happens that day. Let's say Keith gets the belt. You've got a whole different fight that can play out. And now Keith is back in the championship mix, making a little bit of money before he retired anyway. Because honestly, I don't know that he cares that much about the results.
No, I don't think he cares about the results at all, to be quite honest with you. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on in terms of this topic. Anything else you want to
not really. Not on that. I saw a comment. I wanted to say something about somebody asked.
Daily?
I mean, you don't have to say nothing about it. I think it was Juice. No. It was Mark. Would be curious your take on some of these YouTube guys going at each other. I mean, I got just a brief statement, so I think it'll cover me. But I don't know if you want to just kind of give your take on that dynamic. Not so much the parties, but maybe just your take on that whole dynamic necessarily.
Well, I don't duck any smoke, so I'll talk about the parties.
All right, do your thing.
I know who everybody's talking about, and T is interesting because we talked about this right, like literally as we were coming on the air. We were talking the last 10 minutes before we went live. Minute before we went live, we were talking about this very topic. And I think what people are talking about is Blue Blood Sports TV versus Manager Marty. And my thoughts on it is this. And I don't want to call people YouTubers. Maybe they consider themselves YouTubers, maybe not. But let's say this: content creators create content. We ain't rappers. This isn't a West Coast, East Coast. It's just that now I don't agree with a lot of things that Blue Blood Sports TV has said and done. And I think Blue Blood has taken a position where he's trying to perpetuate a level of, I don't know, being a boss that he might not necessarily be at that level. And then, Manager Marty, honestly, and I like Manager Marty's content, but it feels like this has been extended way, way, way too long. Like you come on, you give your take on the situation, because we've talked about some of the things Blue Blood Sports TV has said on our channel. We gave our perspective on it and we moved on. This seems to be dragging on week after week after week and day after day after day. And you got to start asking yourself why. Why is it dragging on? Who's dragging it on? What direction is it coming from? So for me, I don't subscribe to it. You won't see me beefing with anybody because there is no beef. All we are content creators, and there shouldn't be any beef going back and forth between each other, these guys. And I know there was a little bit of beef between who is it? What's the guy's name that has what is Money Brown? Money Brown,
Money Brown,
and then the guy from the Boxing Voice. They've had a little beef too. So I don't know if that's what you guys are talking about, but I think mostly you're talking about Blue Blood Sports TV and Manager Marty. I don't subscribe to that. I think those guys need to let that go. Those are my thoughts.
Man, there's like 3 different beefs. So here's the thing, and I've shared this on my channel as well. I follow all the YouTube boxing community because you don't get a lot of boxing news. If you're not big on boxing scene and those very heavily biased writers, and honestly, it's too many grammatical errors for me to follow. So I won't even go write for them myself. But I follow the YouTubers because they tend to keep the daily conversation going. And a lot of them have built relationships with fighters and people in the fighters camps. So sometimes you'll get something a little sooner than the official websites get it, right? So that being said, I get to see who's going at who. Like I said, I'm not going to say the names because, it's whatever. Everybody that's in the chat probably knows half of this, but you've got different YouTube content creators going at each other. And some of it, I think, is dudes and got together in the DMs and been like, hey, man, controversy sells. It looked like you slowing down. I ain't seen your views up lately. Huh?
I feel like I feel everybody likes to see cars crash. And I believe that this is just people making cars crash. Let me shut up. I'm sorry. Let me go. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you good. I mean, I wanted your input for sure, but yeah, I mean, I think that controversy sells, and I think that some of these dudes have gotten together and say, "Look, man, you got a platform that looks like it can grow to something. I got a platform that could grow to something. Let's help each other get bigger and let's just start this beef." Now, when they start to say personal things about each other, I know them dudes really don't like each other. What's funny is they start to talk about, well, you ain't never at the fights. Well, you ain't never at the fights. That's the funny aspect, and that's when I kind of tune out. But when they're really just kind of like going at each other, and it's just like they're saying little things like, "Oh, I got the real info," and maybe they'll use the other person's catchphrase. To me, it just looks like good marketing. So I'll just let it be. But honestly, anything that's keeping the conversation going, we as boxing consumers have to be smart enough to filter through the BS and just know what's the theater of boxing. Shout out to Boxing Gym Film Study because I got that from him. But the theater of boxing is very simple. There's a certain the fights are only so often for the people you like. So in between, you need something to keep you going. So the theater of boxing is the conversation that we're having, and just understand it's theater. It's just convo. When you close that internet, when you turn off YouTube, let that conversation go and just don't carry beef from person to person. And I think we'll all be a better boxing community. That's my thought on YouTubers going at each other.
Yeah, we shouldn't be going at each other. You guys have seen multiple occasions that we've had other YouTubers on our channel. We don't have any beef with any specific YouTuber. If Blue Blood Sports TV reached out to me and said, "Hey man, I'm going to come on. I would like to come on your channel and have a conversation." Hey, then we would make that happen. Now, of course, I wouldn't advertise that because I don't know if he would actually show up. But some people and see what's going to end up happening. I mean, again, I went and checked out just
No, that would piss me off.
because Jason sent me the say, "Hey man, Manager Marty's going live right now, man. They wait for Blue Blood." So I went over there and checked it out very quickly, and after like 3 minutes, man, I was like, "This is not my thing, man. This just feels like a whole lot of just the same shit over and over and over and over and over and over again." And everybody needs to be better than that. You got to rise above it. And if you don't F with Blue Blood, then you don't F with him. If you don't F with Manager Marty, you don't F with him. If you don't F with, the Angry Man podcast and AM Sports Media, you don't. And then you just ride your lane and be done with it. But all this, man, consistently mentioning somebody else in your videos, whether that's Blue Blood mentioning Manager Marty or Manager Marty mentioning Blue Blood, I ain't for that. Make good content and you will get the people who you want on your channel, period. Those are my thoughts.
Facts.
All right.
Unless you're the mic check, then you get a little bit of everybody. My comments be different.
hey, set 76 Mark. I think that was a part of the plan, my friend. I think that was exactly
marketing, bro.
The plan.
Marketing.
All right, man. You're not gonna catch me and Jason beefing like that. I mean, we beef with each other because, quite frankly, I don't like Jason.
Yeah.
But I'm joking, guys. You guys know Jason's my guy. So what else do we got to talk about, man?
So I got the guy pulled up here. So let's get to Terence Crawford and maybe following the Devin Haney model.
Oh yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll kick that off. So shout out to Ray Jackson, man, from Twitter. He's a sub, and we follow each other on Twitter, and he posted something that I thought was very interesting. He actually posted quite a few things this past weekend that I thought was very interesting. But the one post was that, when you look at Devin Haney, we all know Devin Haney wanted to be the undisputed 135-pound champion at the time. He was the WBC champion. He was called an email champion, a fake champion, everything up under the sun other than a actual legitimate champion, right? And so what did he need to do? He needed to get into the ring with these other fighters in order to prove himself. Well, that took a sacrifice. That sacrifice was to go over there and sign with Top Rank. Top Rank is not known for successfully marketing and promoting African-American fighters, but he did it anyway. Why? Because that's where the titles were. That's where his legacy was going to be made, and he made it happen. So Terence Crawford may need to consider the same thing. Now, when you consider some of the comments that Terence Crawford has made about the PBC and Al Haymon, which was Al Haymon is going to fiercely defend his fighter's best interest, then why wouldn't you want to align yourself with an individual like that? You can go over there, maximize your dollars, and then get the opportunity to cement your legacy by going over there, defeating Errol Spence, and then moving up to 154 pounds and beating who you called his cheerleader, Charlo. Why wouldn't you do that? It makes perfect sense to me. So I have a problem with Terence Crawford not even considering that. I think there's an opportunity for Mr. Crawford to really make some things happen in the sport of boxing, which I don't think he's actually took the opportunity to do. Those are my thoughts. Tim, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to you, and you tell me what you think on this subject matter.
Okay, so I tend to agree with what you're saying as far as the blueprint from Haney. And I'm going to segue that into a comment from Jason Williams. Shout out to Jason Williams. So veterans should be following budding fighters. You can't make this up. That fighter is a part of the now. So you can't use that. You don't think that some of the biggest brands in business don't look at the upstarts and steal their ideas and use them to their advantage? That's literally how you survive the times. Go
Can
ahead.
I make a quick comment, man? Before I'm sorry, I just
No,
literally
you
saw.
got it.
I'm not going to name the content creator, but I literally saw somebody steal the concept of the chess. Errol Spence is playing chess and not checkers. He didn't use that in the language, but he basically stole the whole content of the video. But I'm not mad at that. People do that, and he's way bigger than us. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I mean the fact of the matter is, we know for sure, just in the content, since we were just talking about that, in the content creator space, they're looking at smaller channels to get ideas because they know by the time people see the little content creator do it, I've already put that video out and got 10,000 views. So big businesses do this all the time. You think Coca-Cola coming up with all the new ideas internally? They're stealing it from the upstart soda brands. So why wouldn't Bud say, "Hey man, that little young dude might be on to something"? If I'm confident that I can beat this dude or I can at least be competitive, I might need to try that blueprint. Let me go do 3 fights at PBC. I'm gonna do a head-to-head with Spence. I'm gonna agree to a rematch, and if I win either or both, then I could get Jamel Charlo and I could write my ticket for that fight. Now, another part of it would be I saw Rockman said it's too late for Crawford to sign with any promoter unless it's fight by fight basis. No, you could do escalators in the contract just like NFL and basketball contracts are done. You can have the optional year to where the fighter can pick it up or the optional fight. They can say, I'm going to sign for 2 because I want a guaranteed bag in the first and second. And if I'm successful, you have the option to open the books. Or if I'm unsuccessful, you have the option to take that off the contract. But we have a third fight as an option, as an optional. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask Bud to do this because at the end of the day, if he left to go fight Avanesian to feed his family, why wouldn't he take a deal that's going to secure the bag? And this time you're going to get some back end that's going to pay you for years to come. So when you retired and they showing Bud highlights, all that PBC stuff you did, you're still getting paid off it. Because that top rank stuff, Bob is in the grave with that stuff and you ain't getting $1. Let's think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just messaging back and forth with Rockman. I call him Rock. I see him in the comment section all the time, man. He's one of the guys that's always coming at, always respectfully though, but he's always coming at everything that we post. He's an interesting guy. Hey, let me quickly and say we got 103 people in the building. We got 56 likes. If you get the opportunity, please hit the like button. It helps people find the content. Also, if you don't like the content, hey, hit the dislike button, but make sure you are engaging with the content. And also, if you get the opportunity, hit that subscribe button, man. We're always dropping content, 3-4 videos a day. We're always trying to give a fresh and different perspective on the sport of boxing. So T, man, we're at 51 minutes, man. I'm getting close to that time, man. I'm getting that itch, man, because it's at the point in time it's about to start. It's about that time to start opening up the phones, man, and start to hear what the people want to say, man. I want to hear what the people got to say. You know, it might be some people and they want to argue with us about Terence Crawford, or they want to come in and talk about you know, something else, Tank Davis, whatever. The phone lines, we're gonna start taking phone calls right now, but T will continue to talk on some of these topics and look at what we got going on in the chat. Yeah, LNSS. Yeah, Rockman's wrong. I don't even know what it is he said, but he's definitely wrong.
Bro, so here's the thing. I've done entertainment contracts and I understand why you will put escalators and why somebody on the back end of their career would take security over question marks. So signing a deal that secures you for 2 to 3 fights is much better than signing a fight by fight, because now you have something that says no matter what my results are, I'm guaranteed a certain thing. But if you do fight by fight, let's say you win a fight, but you have an ugly performance, you get dropped in the fight, you go to the cards in the fight, and all of a sudden your market value is down. You got to go negotiate from that position. But if you're in a 2 or 3 fight deal, after fight one, if it's not your best performance, you could go to fight two and you already got the bag set up and your back end is covered. So if we're talking about facts, factually, what I'm saying makes sense for an older fighter. A younger fighter, Devin took a big risk that could have backfired more so than an older fighter because Devin still has years in front of him. He's only like 25 years old. One last thing you had in there while you open the lines up, PBC failed, PBC Showtime failed Boots and Ellis because of the matchmaking. So I did want to cook on it a little bit. If you got something to say.
Yeah. So this guys, the genesis of this was basically a conversation that Sean Porter was having on the Porterway podcast with Ant, who is his co-host. And basically he was saying that, you know, the way that they matched these fighters was incorrect. They should have matched Villa with Bruce Ennis, and they should have matched Karan or KC, however you want to call him, with Ellis. And I disagree with that. Number one, so these two, Ellis is 29 years old. Jaron Bruce Ennis has 29 fights. These guys are not rising prospects anymore. You should not be thinking about matchmaking so carefully at this point. These two individuals were put into the ring with two fighters that they should have looked good against when you think about it. When you think about Karan, if Bruce Ennis would have had the ability to actually cut off the ring, he would have been fine. When you think about Ellis boxing skill and movement should have presented some problems from Villa. And it did. It did all fight. He just ran out of gas. At the end of the day, fighters needed to perform. Now, it was clear that the strategy was to get these two guys in the ring, because I think it's very clear that Jaron Bruce Ennis is not getting the opportunity to fight Errol Spence. I think everybody knows that. So that was the reason why they had these two fighters together. That's the reason why BC asked the question that he asked. They were planning to make two guys fight, and that's good. That's a good strategy.
They were cooking it.
At the end of the day, fighters have to perform, period. And if they don't perform, and this happens in the sport of boxing all the time, you have upsets and the things that you plan don't happen. So those are my thoughts on it, man. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think the PBC failed them. That was a terrific night of boxing. Ellis versus Villa stole the show. So no, I have no problem with what the PBC did, and I don't think they failed. Let me retract. The PBC and Showtime, I don't think that they failed those fighters.
No, they didn't. I thought the matchups were good. It was a good contrast. And the idea was, I'm not going to call it genius, because I don't think that the matchmakers really picked it this way, because Boots was in a different position for his IBF fight, whereas Ellis was in the eliminator and he got whoever was in the rankings near him. That being said, I thought it was a good contrast to show somebody with power. Can Ellis take a shot? And then you go and you see Boots. Can Boots move around with somebody that's slick? Now, they both failed that test because Ellis clearly can't take a beating and Boots can't handle a slick fighter right now that can move around, right? That being said, I still think it was a good contrast to see them with a fighter that was similar to what's going to be their next rival. But that being said, putting them on the card back to back, because within reason, I think Demetrius Andrade should have been the second fight of the pay-per-view portion, not the first, but they needed to put them back to back for you to get that contrast. I thought it was a good setup, and Ellis just couldn't seal the deal, but I don't think it closes the fight. In fact, I think it might make it a little bit more intriguing, because we saw enough from both to say, there's some stuff these dudes need to work on. Maybe we don't need to rush Boots into the Lions Den with the big dogs. Maybe we need to see these two dudes fight, and whoever comes out of it can either fight a champion or fight for a vacant belt. So in my opinion, it works.
Man, and so the only thing that I would disagree with what you said was that I don't think Karan was a test or like a fighter that was prepping him for Ellis. Like, I don't think their styles are necessarily similar, because I don't think a lot of people knew that Karan had the ability to move like that. And for those people that keep talking about, oh, he ran, that guy looked like the same fighter I saw in a couple of fights that I watched. Same kind of movement, herky-jerky, had some ability to slip shots. The only thing is he implemented a little bit of movement, and Boots couldn't deal with it. It was just that simple.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, Ellis could do that, but better, because he can initiate offense off the movement. So, and that's why I said it's a low-key preview. Just like I don't think Villa is a good replication of Boots, obviously, because we talk about a zombie following you around throwing haymakers. But yeah, that's just kind of my opinion. Let's see, we had a comment in here I want to run back to while we wait. You got the phone lines open, or we just cooking while we wait for them to call? Is that what we're doing?
I'm just waiting for the Keggy, Deuce Daly, Tonal Vision, Showtime Finance, Sante L, all the folks that I know I've seen in the comment section all the time that I haven't had the opportunity to talk to yet, I'm just waiting for those guys to call.
So tunnel vision. I want to address your comment since I just seen it. Demetrius Andrade is if I'm not mistaken, he's won belts in 2 divisions. So if you're going to put somebody on the card, and a card is typically stacked by what have you done, if you're not the main or the co, you're going to be closer to the main and co than anybody else. Rashidi Ellis has never won a belt as a professional, so that means Demetrius Andrade has actually achieved more up to this point. So in theory, you will put him further down on the card, closer to the main event, because he is what you might consider a featured fighter. Now, because of the circumstances of 2 welterweights back to back, it just made sense from a marketing standpoint, because you could tell they were marinating the fight. Even it made sure that they sat next to each other at the press conference. All these things were in line for a reason. This wasn't a mistake. This was strategic marketing.
Yeah, I think I might have screwed something up on the phone line, guys. Give me 1 second because we have been missing phone calls, but I did not hear. So yeah, give me a second to get the.
Well, you handle that. I'm gonna go ahead and go through the comments and just talk with some people and see. All right, so let me go up. 2-fight deal at 154 to fight Charlo, then Spence potentially a 4-fight deal. And then you don't do a 4-fight deal with Crawford. You do a 2-fight with a third as an option, just because that's good for everybody. It gives PBC an out if for some reason he's shot after 2 fights, and it also gives Crawford an out if he feels like he could increase his market value by winning 2 fights and then going somewhere else, or coming back and negotiating the 3rd fight separately at a higher stake. I don't think either one of those parties makes sense signing a 4-fight deal with a fighter of that age.
So we got a phone call coming in. Let me see if I can answer. I can't hear it ringing though. Let me see if I can answer it.
Okay.
Hey, you on the Angry Man podcast. Can you say something quickly? T, I don't know if you hear him. Can you hear him?
I can't hear nothing. That's Big Dose. I don't hear anything.
Yeah, I don't hear anything either. I'm not sure what's going on with the phone lines. Man, continue, man. Let me just see if I can get this to work.
Yeah, I'm looking through the comments to make sure we didn't miss anything. That's a good topic. Life is Good says, how was it a fail when Ellis declined the fight with Boots? No. We're not saying it's a fail. We're saying everything played out how it should have, besides the fact that the judges got it wrong and Ellis lost. They don't owe Boo Boo a damn thing. Okay, that's fair. I mean, I get what you're saying. Fighters that they're invested in. Well, they're as invested in Ellis as they are in Andrade, so it's about the same. Let's see. Spence just came back from a near fatal car accident. Yeah, I mean, coming off that and going in to fight Danny, he could definitely stop Keith, because Keith is weak to the body. And what does Errol Spence do well? Let's not pretend this guy isn't the body snatcher at 147. Come on now, let's not play these games. But he's certainly not the same. But he's not the same fighter that fought Danny. The dude that fought Ugas, the version of Spence that fought Ugas in the ring with Danny getting stopped or he getting put down. Newcomer doesn't get hometown treatment, but wasn't a day one. Okay, but this isn't about him getting hometown treatment. This is business people doing business deals. I don't have to be your friend to do good business, and you have to know your own value and set it at that. If I'm Bud Crawford, I'm going to say, hey, I would like an escalating scale. I can either sign a 2-fight deal with you to fight this one person, and if I can beat him in 1 or 2 of those matches, I'd like to fight the person at the next weight class, and I'd like the option to escalate my pay. I want that to be optional. Neither one of us is committed, and we could renegotiate if we satisfy these terms first, whether it be I need to win the first 2 fights, or maybe I need to be part of the marketing and sell a certain amount of pay-per-views or sell out to arenas, whatever. You could put escalators in the contract that will allow you to go ahead and renegotiate on the back end of a contract. It doesn't all have to be there. Go look at some NFL contracts and how this stuff has all of these requirements for dudes to hit their bonuses and stuff like that. So just keeping it a buck, it's not unreasonable. So negotiating terms is dictating terms, because if I can say, if Is somebody calling in?
No.
No.
You can hear somebody?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm hearing the echo of the broadcast now. So to talk about, let's see, where is it? Where is it? I'm trying to see where it's talking about Spence. I done lost the Bud thing. Oh, dictating terms. So if we're talking about terms that have been dictated by a particular side, that's not really what's at play here. What I'm saying is this: if everybody is actually interested in getting a deal done, nobody really dictates the terms besides the person that's putting up the money. Now, PBC slash TGB and Showtime are going to come in with a certain amount of leverage by default because Showtime's putting the money up. So they're going to have a say in, we're not willing to do Bud for 3 fights unless he hits A, B, C, D. Off the top, that means that they're dictating the terms, right? So if I'm wrong, just, tell me how I'm wrong in that particular example. If they're putting up the money, are you telling me they don't get to dictate the terms? Who dictates the terms when the NFL players goes to renegotiate his contract? Who dictates the term? The player or the owner? The person that's paying the bag, right? Exactly. So I just want y'all to consider that.
So we got somebody calling in, and I'm going to see if we can actually hear them.
Okay.
You're on the Angry Man podcast. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on? It's Tunnel Vision.
I cannot hear them. I don't know if you can, T.
Hello?
I can't. I don't hear nothing. I ain't even hear it ring. Usually, I heard it ring last time I was on.
I don't. This set up the exact same way. I'm not sure why it's not working right now.
Postal was Crawford's best win. So Victor Postal is a better win than Kell Brook overseas. It sounds like the broadcast can hear it, but we can't.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I've heard that somebody on the call told me that. I don't know why we can't hear it. We should be able to.
He said, "Why you ducking the smoke?" Man, get the hell out of here. I want you to get online. Matter of fact, while you tune that up, I'm gonna plug up my phone.
They say we ducking. Sorry, guys, you might have got an echo there. That should be going now. Let me try one other thing. Here. Oh, I didn't realize T was gone, guys. My bad about that. Did not realize he was gone. I was still here trying to make this thing happen. So let me go to solo. All right, man. Yeah, man, I'm still trying to get these lines up. Not sure exactly what's going on here. Trying to make sure that we have everybody get their opportunity to actually give their take on this. T, are you back? Sound like I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I was just getting my charger.
Oh, okay. Let me bring you back in. There we go. Yeah, just give me 1 second, T. I'm still trying to get this line up.
You good? I'll cook with the peoples.
Everybody can hear it, but we cannot, T, and I don't
Yeah.
understand why.
I mean, so if we're talking about Errol going overseas and losing the fight, but then he got a stoppage, whatever happened up to that point, does it really matter? He hasn't lost since. Rockman, I agree with you on that. What happens next matters most. Here's what I think happens next. Keith Thurman and Errol Spence are going to have a fight. Keith Thurman is going to lose that fight and remain number one in the WBC. Errol Spence is going to have a few weeks to fight Terence Crawford. But let's keep in mind, the clock on the IBF started January 7th. By my calculations, that's going to put you roughly April something. Let me see, 120 days. So let me see, that's February, March, April, May. I'm sorry, that's going to put you at May. It's going to put you at like May 7th or 10th. That Spence is going to have to fight Crawford. So with a timeline like that, where he's got to get that fight booked, pretty much by the time he get in the ring with Keith, he needs to already have agreed to terms with Terence Crawford. And then maybe they could put something in there that says, as long as you have 3 belts when you exit the Thurman fight, then this date is good. If you don't, then you go off and figure out what you want to do with the mandatories. I'm going to try and get that belt from Keith sometime this year. And then we can negotiate as unified versus unified. If I'm Crawford, I might actually like that a little bit better, because that means that I have more leverage, because now I'm a unified champion versus a single belt champion against a unified. No, I agree, LNSS. I agree. What I'm saying is Errol Spence is going to have a fight no matter what if he doesn't sign up to fight Terence Crawford. He has a very short time frame.
Yeah.
I just heard something come through there.
You just heard something come through what?
I heard some audio coming through. I don't know what it was. Whatever you were playing, I heard it through the mic. No, he don't have 120 days after Thurman fight. It's 120 days from when Boots fought. Boots is now the interim. So Spence has 120 days to either book a fight with Crawford, or he's going to have to fight Boots for that IBF belt. That's going to put you at May. So on the Crawford side, the WBO mandatory list currently, because their fight was delayed, Virgil Ortiz is number 1 in the WBO. Jaron Ennis was. When the February rankings come out in about 2 weeks,
Welcome
Ennis
back.
should fall out. Oh, we got something playing. Ennis should fall out, which means that the number 3 was Rocha, if I'm not mistaken. And there's some other guys in there as well. But Virgil's at the top until he fights. Virgil's at the top until he fights Stanionis. Then he's going to drop off as well. They should probably be fighting by April. I think they're aligning that fight to be on some type of undercard. Then again, they might set them up. Looking at the calendar now, I'm just thinking this out live, so y'all bear with me. Thinking this out now, with Stanionis coming back and fighting Virgil, and Jermell Timzoo getting pushed back, you might see that fight, those 2 delayed fights, on the same card now. And I think that will be a really good card. And it won't be pay-per-view, because none of those are pay-per-view fighters. So we might see that in March. Mark, who are you talking about hasn't agreed to their next fight? So Spence has already agreed to fight Thurman, from what we're understanding. They're already looking at venues and dates. So he does need just 1 belt, but he really needs to either have that IBF or the WBC, because he's already had those the longest. The WBC is more willing to grant you special exceptions, and the IBF will have more of a super thing. I can hear it ringing now.
This is the Angry Man Podcast. Can you hear us? I heard it ringing, but I don't hear anybody. Do you hear him?
I got nothing on my end either.
You speaking, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I could hear it ringing, but I can't hear them.
Try to stick with you, man.
Don't know what's going
Ms.
on.
Lane, What makes it a duck? Why is it a bad fight? Do you not think Keith Thurman is a good fighter? Do you not think Errol Spence is a good fighter? What makes it a duck? Do you not think that there's some style contrast? Keith is really fleet of foot and he can crack. So we're saying that a fight between two good fighters is only good. Oh, they're saying that they can hear, the listeners can hear, but we can't. Super low volume.
Doesn't make
a fight is only important if it's for the belts, even if it's elite fighters. In what world does that make sense though? Like it's only a good fight if the belts are on the line. So you mean to tell me if Shakur and Tank were to fight tomorrow, that wouldn't be a good fight? Rockman, I don't understand what you're saying. What does Charlo and 154 have to do with the Mandos at 147? In the context that you're laying it out, I'm not following. 120 days ain't relevant. The WBA said they'll give EJ and TBC 60. Okay, LNSS, 120 days is for the IBF. So if he wants to keep the IBF belt, he needs to have a fight with Crawford pretty much by May 7th, May 10th, somewhere in there. Just kind of 160 days from 120 days from January 7th. He has to have a fight booked with Crawford by then, or he's going to need to negotiate an IBF fight.
Yeah, guys, I couldn't get the phone lines to come up. I hate to just keep not going. I mean, T, if you feel comfortable continuing, I'll try one more effort to try to get this up.
Yeah, if you want to sort it out, I'm good. I'm just working the comments here, so 120 days from his next fight, but that doesn't make sense. Why would they say you got 120 days from from some undetermined date? Why would they even do that? It's ringing again, but stop. So somebody's trying to call, but we ain't getting it. Like, why would they say in December when Boots announced his fight, then they put out those terms if it wasn't due to the date of Boots' fight? Said that ring is loud. How can Stanley on his fight in March, but Spence has a fender bender and won't fight until April? James, think about this. Do you know what injury? We know what Stanley Onis had surgery on. He had his appendix removed, right? So what's the recovery time on the appendix? I can Google it real quick, or you can look it up and you put it in the chat. We don't know what happened to Errol Spence. I am under the impression that he likely had some type of ligament damage, and we don't know what the recovery time for somebody like Spence is with some ligament damage. We don't know. All right, let's see what else we got. A fight is as important as the fighters themselves make it. Exactly. If you put two good people in there to scrap, man, it's a good fight. It's a real good fight. Think about this. When Lomachenko fought Jermaine Ortiz, that was a good fight. That was a real good fight. How can we say it wasn't? When Frank Martin fought Michelle Rivera, that was a good fight. And it wasn't because of anything. It was some type of eliminator, but that didn't matter. We expected it to be a good fight. It actually turned into a wash. But those were two good fighters that we expected to put on a good show. We don't know what's going to happen when Spence and Thurman get in the ring. Now, I personally favor Spence in that particular one just because what he does really well is something that actually can damage Keith. Now, something Keith does well is he could catch it at angles and move a little bit, and he could give Spence some trouble. I just think that it favors Spence in this particular matchup. Doesn't mean it won't be a good fight for as long as it lasts. And I mean, Keith ain't no quitter either. I don't see him giving up. He took a knockdown from Pacquiao and got up and gave that dude hell for the rest of the fight to where it became a split decision. Let's think about that. Yeah, do that. Tap in. You got a 3-man scene. Keith does know how to survive. Let's go. Who's interested? You can turn your camera off. I can't hear you, bro. I don't know if they can, but I can't hear you.
You can. I muted myself very quickly. You guys try to click on that link, man. You'll be able to join the link. and you won't be on camera, but we will be able to hear you. So try that instead of the call in for right now. Don't know, the call in should be working. I have no idea why we can't hear it. It's strange, because I actually tested the call in before we went live and it worked fine. I don't know. All of a sudden it's not working.
It's called FM, bro. That's a tech term. Fucking magic.
Oh, there you go.
Tech term.
There you go. Because I definitely, there's no reason why. I get why they can hear it, but I don't understand why we cannot, because we're all on the same channel. Doesn't make sense.
There we go. Okay, we got a caller. What up, bro? Who we got?
Man. Tunnel Vision. What is
meet you, bro. This guy.
Not much, man. Chilling, man. Tony, you always in the comment section, man. We ain't never ducking no smoke from you, man. Y'all, they don't hear him. They don't hear him. Let me I know why you guys, we can hear you, but they can't. I know why we can't hear you though. Give me 1 second. You guys will hear him very soon. Yep. I know exactly why you can't. Let's go. Drop them in there.
You gotta bring him in the show.
You gotta bring him into the show.
All right. About to make your debut, Tunnel Vision.
You still there? You still there, Tunnel?
He gotta come off Wi-Fi or something.
Yeah, I don't hear him. Tony, you still there? Oh, yeah. I hear you. Okay, gotcha. The people should be able to hear you now. Y'all can hear him now, right? I can hear you just fine. They should be able to hear you.
Yeah, they said no. Isaac said no. They don't hear him yet. Yeah.
That's
yeah, we got a full room of no.
Wow. I do not know what's going on today, guys. My apologies. This should
we got another caller tapping in.
All right. Let's guys.
We got another caller.
Say something, Tunnel. They should be able to hear you.
Yeah, you hear me now?
I should be able to hear you. They should be able to hear you. Can y'all hear Tunnel Vision?
Y'all can hear me? Or they still can't hear me?
Okay, they can hear you. They can hear you. We can hear Tunnel now. All right, cool.
All right, since all the the smoke ducking is over, we can get into a couple of things,
There we go.
All right, what you got for us?
Yeah, I guess it would be a couple of things. First, when it comes to Demetrius Andres and the fact that he was put into a position where he was starting off the card, and the fact that he was a quote, multiple champion in multiple divisions. Honestly, that doesn't really mean anything, just due to the fact that I've seen cards where you've seen world champions fight who are decorated, but then the person that's actually headlining the whole thing is some guy that's just coming up with like 3 or 4 fights, but he has a name. As far as Demetrius Andres is concerned, he's not signed to PBC. That's number one. And number two, according to him, I don't know what the relationship is with Showtime, but he somehow said that he's not signed to Showtime either, even though he was honest. I don't know if he doesn't have like a long-term kind of deal with them, but this is a guy who's played them on multiple occasions. He had a deal with Charlo, pretty much done, and it was like a week or so before the fight, he pulls out, and then so that caused all kinds of issues. They get kind of back into the good graces. They put him on a couple of cards, and then they were supposed to do a fight with Charlo. He walks away and goes to DAZN, and he skips out on him again. So he's, regardless, I don't care if he was undisputed in multiple weight classes, he's in a position right now where, they've basically given him a lifeline, so he's put in a position where he has to start kind of from the bottom. Like, yeah, we're going to start you from here. We're going to put you on a pay-per-view card. We're going to have you start out, and then we'll go on from there. I think it's that kind of situation. When it comes to Ellis is signed to PBC, and Ennis, obviously they've had a working relationship with PBC as well. So they have more in the skin on the game when it comes to those two guys than they even do Demetrius Andres. Demetrius Andres is kind of like a project where it's like, all right, we're going to see where it goes. Because from his past history and the things that he's done, you don't know what he's going to do. He could take this one fight and just jump off and go sign to BLK Prime or something like that and go do some bum fights over there. He could easily do that. So it'll be moronic, for them to all of a sudden just off the rip, just put him to the point where he's, on the second slot. Even if you see with Jaron Ennis, with as good as he is, he's always, if he's on their cards, he's always a fight before the main. It doesn't, I forget which fight it was, but it was a fight that happened where he was more popular than the guys that were on the main card, but they were PBC fighters and they were fighting for a world championship. So they put them ahead of him, So even in his situation, they're still putting their guys first in that situation. Because again, he has a working relationship with them, but even he's not signed to PBC. They're just giving him the platform, to build himself. So long as he stays in their good graces, he's cool. He's a guest in that situation, in that space. So people need to realize that he's a guest, So, but as Demetrius Andres, they don't owe that boy nothing. He should be appreciative about the fact that they have him on the card. Period. Because who knows where the hell he'd be right now. Period.
I don't agree with that at all. All.
No. So and as far as I'm gonna get into this, and I'm gonna get into the whole Devin thing. But like as far as the Errol Spence thing, the IBF, the reason it's not from January, it's from his next fight, and the reason it's from his next fight is because right now the WBC has this slot. The IB, after this, then the next person has it because he has 3 belts, so they all 3 can't just order something. It's all about whoever's next in line. I believe the WBA was next in line, but they allowed Errol Spence to do the WBC shot next. Because I believe it was supposed to be the WBA, then the WBC, then the IBF. So he's doing the WBC now. Even though it's at 154 pounds, it's a sanctioned WBC belt. And according to Suleiman, he still managed to do this fight. So if everybody's thinking that, he could have went and did the Crawford fight or something else, Suleiman made it clear. He's like, when, Terence Crawford decided to walk away from that fight, and go do his thing with Avanesian, after that whole thing failed, then they mandated this fight against Keith Thurman. They requested for it to be at a higher weight class, so they're allowing them to do it as a non-title fight, but it's still a WBC event. It's still a mandated event. He's still fighting his mandatory. Yeah, so he's still fighting his mandatory. And then
vision. For me personally, just based on what Suleiman said, it felt like he was basically saying he's satisfying his mandatory. Now, he didn't use those specific words, but it sounded like he's basically saying he's satisfying his mandatory. And in the event that Errol Spence decides that he's coming back to 147 pounds after the Keith Thurman fight, if he wins, he will still be champion. If he doesn't win, he moves up to 154 pounds. Now you got another conversation because he's leaving the titles behind anyway. So that's how I interpreted what he said. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the way he was saying it, it was like, after the fight, we'll see what happens. And I think he's saying it like that just because if, the whole thing with Terence Crawford doesn't work out and he stays at 154 pounds, then obviously they're going to mandate 2 other people. Probably it's going to be Keith Thurman again, and they're going to mandate him to fight somebody else for the WBC. Because I think what's going to happen is after this bout's done, they're going to attempt to, make a deal with Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford's not doing that deal. Terence Crawford is fighting 2 to 3 times with BLK Prime in 2023. There's nothing about what that man is saying would make anybody believe that he's gonna fight Errol Spence next. I'm waiting for what's next. With BLK Prime. He said that BLK Prime saying they're gonna have 6 pay-per-views. Yet the only people they have is Adrian Broner, who we know is doing 3 fights, and then clearly the other person would be Terence Crawford. So I think what's going to happen is after he does not fight him, then Errol Spence is going to stay up at 154 pounds. Then, whatever happens with the belts happens with the belts. I just think that at this point, he's not going to make that sacrifice to grind himself down to 147 pounds unless it's for undisputed, because it's got to the point where now it's tough for him to do. And he's fighting at a weight class he shouldn't be at anymore. So I think that's what's going on with that. So, I mean, after his next fight, then we'll see. But as far as the IBF, yes, it would be from his next fight, because they can't manage him to do anything right now until after his next bout. And as far as my last thing with Devin Haney, could we please stop all this BS talk about he took some risk? The man did not take no damn risk. This man got paid. A fighter who generates less than $200,000 a gate in a gate got paid $2.8 million to go to Australia and face someone that he was a 4-1 favorite to beat. This is not like a situation where it was like a tight match where we didn't know who exactly was going to win, where it was going to be some kind of tough thing where he could get robbed because it's going to be so close. No, he was facing somebody where we knew Tank Davis is knocking that guy out. We knew Devin Haney's beating that guy. We knew Shakur Stevenson's watching that guy. This is not someone where it was like, oh man, we don't know what's going to happen in this particular fight. And we've seen other fighters go. We've seen Terence Crawford go to the UK and fight, for his WBO belt. We've seen Errol Spence go to the UK to fight for his IBF belt. That was more of a risk, because that was actually him taking off pretty much what's considered probably the one or the number 2 welterweight in a division where that man could had the skills to really make it interesting, take it 12 rounds, where Errol Spence actually could have been robbed. We've seen Hector Garcia come to the United States from the Dominican Republic and take on Colbert with a week's notice, something like that, and win that fight. Then after that, go and fight for his championship belt in the United States. That's taking a risk, not getting paid $2.8 million, And the other guy only got paid under $4 million because we know that because of he got sued by his manager. So it's not even like it was this big, huge, psychotic gap. He got paid really good money. And then you get to fight that guy again for another $2.8 million. And then now you get to fight an old 126-pounder that looked like dog-ish in his last fight. That's a great deal. There's nothing risky about that. There's nothing terrible about that deal.
So tunnel vision, let me say this. So if we replace the word with risky and replace smart with risky, he took a smart, calculated move in order to make more money and secure his legacy. Would you be okay with that? Because that's essentially exactly what we're asking Terence Crawford to do, to make a smart, calculated move and make more money and secure his legacy.
No. And the reason I would say what I would call it, I would say he saw a lick and he took it. That's what I would say, because it's completely different.
Okay. I get what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Because he could have think about it. When Teofimo Lopez had the belt, he was working on a fight-to-fight basis with DAZN. So he could have signed with Top Rank then, and then had a fight with him then. He could have did that deal then, but he waited until Kambosos had that belt before he made that move. After Kambosos had that belt, he made that move. He could have been with Top Rank a long time ago, but he went over to DAZN because DAZN was paying him the most money, and he didn't have to fight that many fighters. Everybody knew that Eddie Hearn had a hard time making fights with people, yet that's where he chose to go. He made a lick over there, got paid a boatload of money over there, taking on mid-level competition, stacked up that bank account, and once that whole situation was done, because they started to get rid of fighters, he saw this other lick pop up and he jumped on that. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Let me hop in real quick, Tunnel Vision, and say this, because Jason Williams is in the comment section. He's saying, Greg, stand on that word risky. So here's what's great and nice about the Angry Man podcast and AF Sports Media. When somebody creates and comes with a legitimate point, we don't have to stand on anything. If the argument that you're making makes sense, then we're willing to hear it and entertain that. So no, I'm not going to sit up here and just argue for the sake of arguing. That's not how I do it. Now, I do believe that it was still a risk by going over
undisputed
facing this guy, right? At the end of the day. But Tunnel Vision, I do understand what you're saying. The risk is mitigated when the reward is so great. And I also understand when you're saying that it's a lick because the competition relative to Devin Haney versus Kambosos and Crawford versus Spence, those are two totally different things. So I understand that, and that's clear to me, and it makes sense to me. So I hear your argument, and guys, again, we're not going to sit up here and argue for the sake of arguing. That was a great point, Tunnel Vision.
Yeah, because those two things are different. Yeah. It'd be different if, like, let's say if he was fighting Shakur Stevenson, who I guess all of a sudden is Puerto Rican now, all of a sudden. So if he was going to Puerto Rico to take on Shakur Stevenson, you know, a fight of that magnitude, then I could understand. Then, because that's now it's like, okay, that's a risk now, you know, because you could lose that bout, and that could you're taking on a match that could, you know, alter your career drastically, and he has the rematch clause, not you. You know what I mean? It's not a dual rematch clause or anything like that. So if it was a situation like that, then I could be like, then I would say, yeah. Or if Shakur was from wherever, he was from the UK or something like that, and he went to fight Shakur in the UK for that belt. In that type of situation, I 100% would say, yes, that's a risk. He took a risk. He took a gamble.
So didn't have to, and he made it. That's not what happened. Let me throw a different term at you. Disadvantage. And we got to get LNSS in there too, because he's been waiting. But I do want to say this as a rebuttal. If you don't call it a risk, he took disadvantageous circumstances in order to take the fight. He took good money, but he had to go overseas. He had a one-way rematch clause. So there was disadvantages in the contract that I believe made it something at least to get credit for that. Hey, you took a chance that you could have came out of this with nothing but money. You could have been short belts. You could have got your butt whooped in another country. You could have gotten robbed by the judges in another country 2 times. So at a minimum, you have to see that this was a disadvantage. That was my closing point on that. I know LNSS has been waiting though.
Hey, I appreciate you calling in, Tunnel Vision, man. Yeah. First of all, I want to get to you, but Tunnel Vision, I appreciate you calling in, man. Dude, you're always dropping some straight fire in the comment section. Again, appreciate it, man.
Respect.
And definitely want to have you call in again, man. Thank you, sir.
I know doubt. Y'all be good.
All right, be good,
man.
Hey,
peace out, fam.
What's going on with you, bro?
Shit, I can't believe I'm talking to you because you think I'm a hater. But hold on. Expand on my 2 to 3 fight deal on
hold on,
on Boy and PBC
on YouTube again.
LSS, man, you go back and forth on Bud and Spence.
Did I call you a hater?
Yeah, because I called you a Spence fanboy. And the only reason I say fanboy is because a lot of this shit back and forth. You did a segment about double standards with Spence and Crawford, right? And I think the double standard is with the fans, because all the ducking talk is between us. Ain't none of us heard fucking EJ or Crawford say they ducked one another, right?
No, that's a fair point.
It come out of their mouths.
Fair point.
So I think, and you were talking about a chess move with EJ. I think it's a chess move between both of them to force PBC to get them to fight, because I don't think either one is ducking.
Bud is definitely ducking, but go ahead.
Well, here.
Break it down.
That's why I said a fanboy. Ain't no fighter gonna duck, man. Fighters don't duck.
Hey, listen.
If you got balls enough to get in the ring, you ain't ducking.
Let me make this comment.
On a 2 to 3 fight deal. I think EJ.
Real quick. I think fighters are not afraid of each other. Yeah, I agree with that. But fighters do duck each other. Go ahead.
I think it's more PBC than anything. And I think what Bud and EJ have done is put PBC in a corner. You see if you follow along with my thinking. So I was saying a 2 to possibly 4 fight deal. It'll definitely be 2, but there'll be clauses in it to potentially be 4. So PBC wanted Bud to sign a 2 fight deal, right? Originally,
I believe so.
With EJ,
yeah, if I'm not mistaken,
to have the rematch, to do the rematch clause. So what they get with this, with Thurman and Spence being at 154, they get EJ and Crawford to promote 3 fights.
Mm-hmm. I'm tracking
because Spence Thurman to be at 154. That forces Bud can use his WBO clause as super champ to fight Charlo now. Now that he's got the medical exemption versus Suzo, Tim.
Okay. Yeah, bro, we can hear you. Hold on for 1 second.
Can you hear me?
We're wrapping up. Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. We just had another.
LNSS, go ahead, bro.
So Bud can use his super champ clause to fight Charlo next because he's got the extension. Let's say 6 months. Because he's in the cast for 2 months, 2 months to rehab, 2 months for camp, right? Mm-hmm. They get Bud and Spence to promote. Spence Thurman promotes Bud Charlo. Charlo Bud promotes Spence and Crawford at 154. And where I get the 2 to 3 fight deal is PBC can offer Bud the 2 fight deal at least, at minimum, to fight Charlo. He gets undisputed and then fight Spence, right?
Uh-huh. So you're saying that you believe that he's going to go.
The clause will be.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, all right. So that's where I'll agree with you. If Bud is not ducking, he'll go to 154. If he don't go to 154, he's ducking. I'll give you that.
Okay. We can align on
because
that.
Because his only logical move is to go up to 154.
I agree.
His only logical move is to go up to 154. He can force Charlo based on the WBO regulations. If he's undisputed at 154, what does Spence have as options? Stay at 147 to chase for another belt, or fight Crawford for undisputed at 154?
Exactly what's going to happen.
So wait. So if Crawford moves up and invokes his super champ status,
I think PBC will force Bud to give them.
But wait, so he has to vacate. He has to vacate to move up for that fight. If he wins, then. So just think about the inner way.
Because Crawford.
So we'll talk about the.
No, if he was champion at the former weight, the WBO will allow him to invoke that rule where he was super champion. Because you don't actually have to have the belt to still be considered super champion based off of their rules, if I'm not mistaken. So you can invoke that rule to say, I want to become the mandatory for the 154 pound championship.
But he got to relinquish the 147 belt in order to move up. Think about the
and he would.
situation.
And since Charlo medical exemption, Bud would be leapfrog Tim Suzu. Based on how the wording of the regulations is.
No, I don't know.
I definitely need to do a little bit more research on that.
Yeah, I would need to research that a little bit more too, because I don't think he's.
I read these things, Dan. I used to fight in the amateur, so I'm like, I've been a boxing fan forever. I'm not just a boxing fan. I love it.
Okay, well, I know. If
I can't even watch the MMA because it's so silly.
I won't call you a hater anymore. I don't want you to put them hands on me. Hey,
I'm orthodox. I dislocated my shoulder when I was a freshman, and I no more. But so I think PBC is willing to give Bud a 2-fight deal at least to fight Charlo, because Bud's gonna beat Charlo, no doubt about that. I have no doubt about that. Him and Spence is a closer fight than him and Charlo. All day.
But hey, we got somebody
just based on their skill and who they fought. Spence.
Anything else you want to share with the people?
Let me get to the. So I think if Bud knocked Spence and their 2-fight deal, he won't let PBC get the 3-fight. But if he wins by unanimous decision, he's got to refight. He's got to rematch Spence, right?
Yeah, you're talking about Bud, right?
Yeah. So let's say if EJ wins the first fight, since Bud would be undisputed, there's definitely going to be a rematch clause to let Bud get the rematch. So there's 3 fights. If Bud wins that the rematch, that creates the trilogy. There's a 4-fight deal.
No, I hear you, man. I hear you. I understand what you're saying. So man, no, hey, it's LNSS, right?
Little nigga from the south side,
name, right? Yeah, man. I'm gonna be
yes, sir.
Lookout for you. I'm gonna be on the lookout for you, man. In the comment section, man. I really appreciate you talking to you, bro.
No, I appreciate it. I'll wait for your next live video.
All right, man. Sounds good, man. Love. Holla at you.
Salute, bro.
Much love, bro.
All right, man. That was LNSS. Wow, man. He was yeah, I think I know exactly who that is, man. I think we've gone at it several times in the comment section. And he said he couldn't even go zone with me, man, because I guess we've probably traded a few nice barbs and shots with each other. Again, man, everybody's welcome on the Angry Man Podcast, AM Sports Media. Guys, we don't discriminate against anybody. We love to hear everybody's views. So it's all good, man. And he did at least admit this. If Bud doesn't move up behind Spence at 154 pounds and still try to get that smoke, he is saying that Bud Crawford is ducking that smoke. All right, man. Yo, T, I got to figure out something on this call in, man, because we got to make sure that we can get the people in very quickly to be able.
We definitely got to get the phone lines popping.
Yeah, man, I got to get them popping, man. What's going on in the chat, bro?
They're just responding to the caller. Everybody got jokes. I'm trying to see if I missed. There was a topic I think that I saw during Tunnel Vision's time, and now I can't find it. Crawford would get flatlined by Charlo. So we could talk about that. So there was a comment here that says, why do we think Charlo beats Crawford? And my simple answer was Charlo is too big and too athletic. And maybe 3 years ago, I might favor Bud. Right when he first grew into 147, I think he was at his most agile. He was at his sharpest. And I think that would have been a dangerous time for Charlo to fight him. But now that Charlo has gotten real indoctrinated with Derrick James, and he's still athletic because he's younger than Crawford, as long as Charlo sticks to the game plan, Bud is going to run into a buzzsaw at some point, and I don't think he lasts as long as Castaño. I think he'll catch him slipping in this night-night.
Yeah. People, for me, I like Bud. I think Bud is a good fighter. I think for me, he does pass the eye test, but I do believe his resume is weak. And I think it's very hard to really know exactly who a fighter is until you see him against competition that you would deem to be satisfactory. With that being said, I think people put a lot into who he is and what he's done, specifically at welterweight and the ability to knock those guys out. But they've been against fighters, man, that a good counterpuncher that sits down on his shots could probably get those fighters out of there. So, and if we were to put those same fighters in the ring with the Danny Garcias and the Errol Spences of the world and the Sean Porters, they would have beat them just as convincingly. So, I struggle with really saying that he's that dude. And when I think about him moving up to 154 pounds against Charlo, who sometimes does not necessarily utilize his ring IQ, but I just think Charlo is just too big, too fast, too strong for Bud. And I think eventually Charlo lands. And I'm not saying Bud can't outbox him because I think Bud's probably a more skilled fighter than Charlo. But at some point, Charlo lands. And when he lands, I don't think Bud's going to stand up to it. And that's how I see it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I just think that it's just a matter of time. Just like when you look at Bud at 147 against some of these also rans he's fought, it's just a matter of time. He's too athletic. He's bigger than a lot of dudes when he get in the ring because he's got a little height to him and stuff for 147. And I think that those same things favor Charlo. Everybody has their weight cap. Y'all think Floyd Mayweather didn't go up to 160 because he couldn't make 160? There's a reason he started doing all them damn catchweight fights. He knew his weight limit. He knew what weight he felt good at, and he knew who to fight when he first got up to a certain weight class to make sure he could handle carrying that extra weight for 12 rounds or however long the fight went. Bud Crawford, I believe, at an elite level, is capped at 47. I think he can compete at 154, but I don't know that I favor him against many of the more solid 154s like Castaño. Fundora would give Bud a lot of problems because he could catch him from anywhere. I don't know that he beats Bud because he's been dropped by lesser competition. I think Lubin versus Bud will be a good fight. Now, somebody I think Bud would beat up, Tony Harrison. He'll beat Tony Harrison ass.
You think so?
Man, he'll beat Tony Harrison up. I think Superbad might get washed against Bud. But Rockman saying we don't favor Terence Crawford. I just don't favor him against the two people we've been talking about the most. I don't favor him against Derrick James and the people that Derrick James is going to send out that corner to put hands on him. That's my point.
And Derrick James is very good at, man, the ability to break down a fighter, man. And then not only that, but also give the level of instructions required in order for his fighter to be successful, man. So I think that's another feather in the cap for Jermell Charlo in the event that he were to fight Terence Crawford. I just favor Charlo, man. I just think there's just too much there for Bud to overcome. Just my personal opinion, though. Maybe, and that's why they fight the fights, right? Because we could be completely wrong, T. Completely wrong.
Yeah, we could. And I mean, like the comment here says Tony Harrison is not getting beat up by anyone. Who's the last pure boxer he fought? Who's the last boxer or athletic boxer he fought? Because Mel is a boxer puncher. And you see what happened. When he hit him and he caught him, the dude's soul left his body and sucked right back in, and came back. You know what I'm saying? Like, you saw the tide change. Literally, you saw the difference. It was just like when Tank hit Hector the other day. You saw the tide change in the middle of the fight. So that tells me right there, he got beat up on from there, and the ref was like, nah, you out of there. I think that against Bud, it would look a little bit different, but ultimately, Bud would get him up out of there because he'll catch him with something slick, and it's over. I will give him credit for that. He'll hit you with some sneaky shit and put you to sleep. Simple and plain. Look at David. That was a sharp, short punch and put him to sleep. So,
man, what else do
Mel
we got?
can box.
Yeah, I think Mel's
go ahead, bro.
A good fighter. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just replying to Mills. He's saying that Mel is a damn puncher, not a boxer. So you mean to tell me he wasn't boxing Castaño face off in the second fight, and eventually that power caught up with him? Because I saw a dude who was boxing. He was working off the back foot. He used some angles. He was showing how athletic he is. And then he just dropped the hammer down once he landed enough blows, and he smelled that blood in the water. Like, I mean, we can't just say these things and act like this dude can't fight. Everybody trying to act like Mel just go out there throwing haymakers till he knocks somebody out. Same shit they saying about Tank. Them dudes can box and they will knock your lights out. Let's not pretend.
Absolutely. Hey guys, we got 128 people in the building. We got 80 likes. If you haven't gotten the opportunity yet, please hit the like button. Or if you don't like the content, hit the dislike button. But make sure you interact with the content. And if you get the opportunity, subscribe to the Angry Man podcast and Sports Media, and go check out the Mic Check podcast as well. That's T Ward's channel, and he is like a sister channel to, or they are like a sister channel to AM Sports Media. Yeah, man. Are we gonna have anybody else join that link, man, to have this discussion, man? We had Tunnel Vision. Tunnel Vision say we were ducking that smoke. Tunnel always is bringing that heat in the comment section. I like Tunnel Vision, man. That's my guy. Who else we got? Who else we got that's gonna show up? I promise you guys next week we'll make sure that we got this thing, got the phone lines completely open. Really, they should be working now. I don't know what's going on. Block Mills Lane. Who is Mills Lane?
He's just in the comments, just going at it. He good. I don't see anything he's saying. I mean, he's got his own opinion, and that's fair. That's because I got my opinion. Nah, bro.
His own opinion.
Man, unless it's like a porn link, I can't think of blocking anything.
Yeah, I'm not, guys. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm not a fan of blocking anybody. I'm not a fan of you come in and you give your opinion, and we're perfectly fine with that. And your opinion could be that Jason and I are idiots, and we're perfectly fine with that as well. Have very, very, very thick skin, guys. Very thick skin. What else do we have to talk about, T? Is there anything else we want to talk about? I know we didn't go into depth about what Suleiman said, but we kind of did with but
he didn't say enough. He didn't say enough to really dissect it because he didn't answer. He was too ambiguous. He didn't answer no questions.
You talking about?
He was like, Yeah, on the boxing voice, he was kind of, not really answering the right questions. Hey, but peep this. Maybe y'all saw it. Why somebody said it earlier, like, what do you think when reporters of news or sports news and content creators flip the switch on like people that they consider like good fighters or their favorite fighters, like they're staunch on one side, and then all of a sudden they just flip and be like, nah, I ain't with that. Do you think that that's just for views, or do you think that something that the fighter's doing has made them change their tune?
So I can answer that, but my answer is not. It might be a little bit controversial. I have a
I want to hear it.
My tongue, man. So, my opinion on a you. So let me preface my statements by saying this to you. Like with what happened with Tunnel Vision, right? Tunnel Vision came on and made a very good point. And what Jason Williams tried to do was make me stand on something that at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I can see that point. I'm a man of logic. And when you come in and you make logical sense, you can convince me to see something in a different light, period. Right? So if a YouTube channel is doing that, where, hey, I've seen something different, there's new information. With new information comes a new perspective, right? So I don't have a problem with that. But from what I've been seeing in regards to some of these YouTube guys is that they're changing their stance because someone is lacing their pockets.
Right? I was thinking that.
So we think about Blue Blood Sports TV. From my understanding, he was a staunch Errol Spence supporter, so much so that in one of his videos, he said when he met Terence Crawford at the 7-Eleven, he said Terence Crawford said that you must be from Texas. And then he switched, and now he's talking specifically about Terence Crawford. And in my mind, there's no new information. So because there's no new information, I've concluded that the change is the result of somebody lining his pocket. And that's the reason why here we don't necessarily want to be associated with anybody specifically related to boxing, right? So if we have somebody that's a sponsor, by all means, we want sponsorship, but we don't want sponsorship from anybody that's related to boxing. And we don't want to be too close of friends with anybody that's a boxer, right? Because it becomes difficult to be critical of those people. And then you start to sway your opinion. The opinions and thoughts of Jason and I are our opinions, and they're not swayed by anybody else. Our opinions are not facts. They are opinions. And we welcome anybody to come on the channel and argue against our opinions using facts, of course. So that's what it is. So what are your thoughts on that, T?
No, I agree with you 100%. And, we're fellow content creators. And one thing that we both understand, and we knew this from the beginning, is not everybody's going to agree with the content that we put out. They're not going to like what we're talking about. They're not going to like when we're talking about it. They're not going to like what we have to say about it. Now, that being said, if you can present something to me that's contrary to what I believe, and you can support it with some type of factual information or some type of statistical backing, I'm more than willing to at least listen to you. And then I could just say, well, in my opinion, I disagree or whatever. If that doesn't mean that you're wrong or I'm wrong. That just means that we have different opinions. Now, if it gets down to something statistical, which is why I love debating football, I can put your numbers. Justin Herbert got better numbers than Matt Ryan. Obviously, Justin Herbert's a better quarterback, simple and plain. Drew Brees has a Super Bowl. Matt Ryan doesn't. He's obviously a better quarterback. I don't care who has an MVP. I can debate that with black and white. With boxing, because it's stylistic, and when you get past records, I don't get firm on a point because you can sway me with your backing. You could point out something from a perspective that is like, man, I ain't even think about it that way. You're right. But I'm gonna be real with you. 80% of the time, you're not going to bring me a perspective that's going to make me change if it's really just rooted in your feelings and not something that we can both see in a tangible way. That's my opinion on
it. Yep. Totally agree with that. Man, what else do we coming up on 2 hours, man? Anything else we need to cover? Hey, guys, if you haven't had the opportunity, please go subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. We got 128 people in the building, 87 likes. If you could, get those likes up. And if you don't like it, hit that dislike button, but make sure you engage with the content.
Sure.
Let me see what we got going on, man.
Like,
Do y'all feel Errol need to drop the belt since he's taking that Thurman fight at 154? Jay, absolutely not. I don't feel like Errol needs to drop the belts at all, because Errol has basically leveraged the rules and found a loophole in order to hold on to his belts for the opportunity to spin the block one more time and unify the titles against Terence Crawford. So no, I don't think he should drop the belts. Now, in the event that he does not make that fight with Terence Crawford after he fights Keith Thurman, if he beats Keith Thurman, then yeah, I mean, I think he's going to 154 pounds anyway. So I think that's a wrap for him.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. Yeah, best videos. The phone is ringing probably, but for whatever reason, we can't hear it on our end. So I'm sorry about that.
Of course,
iBox 23. I'm being nice, guys. I'm being nice. No, there really is no rule. The WBC does what they want. That's why he said, I got to wait for, let's wait and see what happens at the end after the fight, right? So we know that they don't really have any defined, very clear rules. So we understand that, but I'm being nice, guys. Come on, iBox. I'm being nice. What else we got in the comment section, man? I've never had a problem with
Hey, I did want to drop notice that you might have to put in the chat because I'm not on my admin account, or I don't have my wrench here, so the link won't validate. But hey, I'm going to be live tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central Time on the mic check. We're going to be talking boxing along with other sports. I'm going to drop a link here. If one of the admins could repost it so we could pin it or something like that.
Nice.
Let me see. Yeah, we're going to be talking boxing to start off, and then we'll probably venture into something else later. But definitely going to start with boxing, so feel free to tap in. We'd love to get people's opinions and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I'm getting that link for y'all right now.
Tim Bradley went in. What did Tim Bradley go in about? I'm not a fan of Tim. I don't dislike him, but I'm certainly not a fan.
I watched the fight last night.
I feel like he should stop the belts, but bullshitted. Therefore, he should just move on. Now, I do understand that, Jay. I understand that. I understand why you may be skeptical about the ability to actually circle back and make the fight with Bud. I can completely understand that for sure. Dawn Jenkins, the gotcha gamer. I respect y'all views as well. Yeah, man. Everybody's views are respected on this. Are respected on this channel for sure. We let everybody have a fair say, and that's what we like here. Any other topics, T, we got to cover, man, before we call it a day? Anything else we need to?
We're good. Yeah, we got it covered.
I think we got to cover. Anyway, man, let me go ahead and say this again. Shout out to the people who sponsor this channel, Rock Dog Interactive, Black Father Figures. None of them are associated with boxing. Let me see if I can find a link, man, and drop that into the actual comment section. But yeah, guys, again, it's much appreciated having you guys come in and support the channel. At the end of the day, we don't always agree on our favorite fighters. They may be doing something that, we agree with or we don't agree with. We take positions that are different from each other, and that's perfectly fine. But it's all about, coming together as a community, as I've said on multiple occasions, and just being a boxing community, man, talking about the sport of boxing and keeping the sport of boxing alive. And with us coming together, talking about the sport and demanding that some of the biggest fights in the sport occur, that's how we start to get these really big fights. And so, again, I want to talk about some of these guys that are on other channels, the Blue Bloods of the world. All that beast up between content creators really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think a lot of this is simply to, drive views. I want to get more views. I want to get more subscriptions. It's okay. I mean, you can comment on Blue Blood Sports TV and Blue Blood Sports TV can comment on other, because sometimes we're going to disagree, and that's perfectly fine. I've seen Dante disagree with Boxing Ego and so forth and so on and down the line. It's perfectly fine. But we don't want to drag those things out. We want to make sure that we're making good content, and the good content will drive the people to your channel. It's just as simple as that. You don't need the beef. You just need good content. Jay, I appreciate you, man. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Jason and I are always dropping content. Jason should be back tomorrow. He's on yet another trip with his wife. Man, this dude really loves his wife, don't he?
But chill.
Say what? Not say that again.
Don't do nothing but chill.
Let's see. I will be out in April, so Jason will be running the channel all by his lonesome. So we'll see how that goes. But of course, I'll still be only a click away. Solid channel, no drama, which is good. Life is good. I appreciate that, man. We're not into the drama, man. It's all about coming together and talking about the sport of boxing, man. And that's why we don't subscribe to trying to, get into any beef with anybody. Our content will speak for itself, right? And I think Jason and I are always right. I'm sure other people do not think like that, like Jason Williams and Rock and LNSS. They don't think we always right, but they still come back to the channel and talk to us about boxing, and that's what we want. Chilling with wifey is the lick, bruh. I hear you, man. Facts, Greg. Appreciate it, Don Jenkins. All right, man. I think we've covered everything. I appreciate you again, T. If you haven't had the opportunity, guys, please go and check out the Mic Check podcast with T Ward and his bro Q. They drop great content. Again, subscribe to the channel. Hey, John Norrie, appreciate you, man. Appreciate it. You'll be seeing more content from Jason and I coming up this week. There's nothing else that we got, man. Again, shout out to our sponsors. We appreciate them. I just dropped the link into the comment section. Guys, go check that out. amsports.blackfatherfigures.org. The league actually made this website specifically for us. It has merch on it. He started this organization, man. It's about Black fathers, and it's about changing the lives of Black men and women as Black fathers. So that's something that's near and dear to my heart because I'm a Black father. To you're a Black father. I'm pretty sure we got a lot of Black fathers in the comment section. So go check that out. There's merchandise there. Buy some of the merch, man. It contributes to what they're doing as an organization, and we really appreciate you guys. Jason Williams say, I passed the test. I appreciate it. Jason Williams, dude, used to ride me all the freaking time, man. I think he was trying to get me to block him. And I was like, I'm not gonna block you, man. That's not how we do it. So I'm glad I passed the test, Jason. Brenda McDonald, that's my girl right there. We don't never agree on anything, but that is my girl. Appreciate you, Brenda. Peace to everybody that's in the comment section, everybody that contributed today. Tunnel Vision, LNSS called in, Isaac Green, Jay, John Norrie, Don Jenkins, Derek Person, Life is Good, Jay Smith. Who else we got? The Keggy is always in the building. Best videos. Who else we got in the building? Rockman, Asante, all you folks that came in, man, and contributed to the show. We really appreciate it. Be looking out for content. Also be looking out on the community. We're going to drop some polls. We want to make sure that our channel is the best it can possibly be. And so when you guys get the opportunity, please go look at that stuff and vote on it. That's how we make our channel better. Again, appreciate you guys. Much love. Until next time. Peace.